All right. Hello, everyone. We are live. It's Monday night. Welcome to the new CW Operators Roundtable. Tonight, we have a topic that we are going to explore. What makes a great CW key? We've got our cast of characters here. Vince, hello. How are you?
I'm good, and how are you?
Good, good.
Good after evening, noon. If I was going to be proper about it and all, I just had to grab the mute button fast enough on one tab.
We were just talking about we were talking about single sideband and calling over top of each other on the bands because the bands have been crap the last couple of days. And how long did you call? You were calling and
I I, I would yeah, I decided to go do sideband today because I haven't done that for a while, and I was calling for 5 minutes. Hi is a frequency in use, is a frequency in use. No, nothing, nothing, nothing. I'm calling for 4 or 5 minutes, and then the next thing I hear is taking check-ins for the OMIS net. I'm like, hello, I'm here.
I'd like to check in. I'd like to
Like,
work everybody on the net for POTA.
I should have done CW.
Uh, how many check-ins do we have? Because I'm gonna work y'all. That's
Yeah,
great.
exactly.
Uh, Evan, hello. How are you? How
What's going on, man?
is it cold up in New York or is it
It
warmed
is
up?
like 85 degrees right now. I
Oh my
actually had to
God.
turn my air conditioning on today. So yeah, it's definitely not cold. Now it'll probably snow tomorrow, but
Right, right. You were just talking about how the bands were crap. I had no idea the bands were crap because I forgot my battery the last time I went to do a POTA. But what what's what's the band situation so far? Is it still in the dumps or
I
has
mean
it gotten better?
they've been lousy for the past, I don't know, week or so. They've been pretty bad. I mean, I with the last activation I went out to do, I was going out with a 5 watt radio to review it, and I brought my 100 watt rig with me too, just in case. And I ended up needing it. I've never run QRO in the field or even 100 watts in the field ever. That was the first time I ever ran over 20 watts. So it's bad, and it was a struggle even on 100 watts. So yeah,
Jeez.
they've been bad.
Oh, great. Makes me want to go out and make some contacts.
Yeah. No, the A index is just it's been that's what's been hitting us. There's been so many farts and belches from
Yeah.
our nearest star that it's really been making the bands go up and down, up and
Yep.
down.
I thought it was from the cicadas. When's the cicada band propagation going to happen? Is it too soon? Sorry. All right. Charlie.
People are calling the police about the cicadas down in Georgia. So
Oh, really? Have they migrated in Georgia?
I guess that they're so loud down there, people are calling the cops because they don't know what's going on. Yeah.
Even better, a better excuse to do CW. Put your headphones in and just pound out some CW, and then just it becomes like this background noise of it's just are people giving s meter readings on how the cicadas are? Is that
Cicadas, yeah, they're a solid 599 plus 20.
add a
Hey,
add
hey,
a fourth one?
hey, Charlie, how are the cicadas in Arizona?
Yeah, how are they down there?
We don't do cicadas here.
We don't
Yeah.
do cicadas. We don't. There are no cicadas. We eradicated them in 1932
All gone. Yeah.
with all the atomic. Well, it was in the 40s, but all the atomic radiation going on down there. Have you been doing some SOTA summits? I've seen your call sign pop up on my ham alert.
Well, I try to do at least every other weekend. I haven't been out in a couple weeks, but it sounds like it's good that I haven't been because it's the band conditions. And I know that the propagation stuff is kind of wonky right now, but we're also going into summer. Summer's usually not that great anyway,
Yeah.
regardless of the solar cycle. But we are going to come up. We're coming up on e-skip season soon, so it'll get better with the e-skip, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, I just was I think it's been a couple weeks since I did SOTA, so I'm planning on going out this Friday.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. It was upstated. Do you want his address? No, no, we don't want his address.
Only just send them pizza.
Yeah. Well, if you
The
send a
problem is she knows it. So
oh, well, there you go. All right, so we're going to talk about what makes a great CW key. And we have two of the masters here that really review CW keys. We have Charlie, which has a YouTube channel. If you type Red Summit RF into your browser, and I'm sure that it'll come up on the Tuba U. And he does reviews on CW keys, so I'm glad that he is here to kind of give us direction. And he has a whole classification. Maybe we'll ask Charlie about his classification. I think he uses some of his AI skills to figure out how to group things. And I'm waiting for the spreadsheet of all of the keys that you have reviewed.
That'll be interesting
to maybe release. Maybe just make it read only. And then we've got Evan. Evan does tabletop reviews, which I love, and he has a ton of keys. How many keys did you count? 20-some?
I've got about 20, 25 here on the table right now, so.
Yeah, so between Charlie and Evan, I think you guys probably have a couple thousand keys between all of you, and then Vince and I have like 4 or 5 together. So we got 10, and so
I'm going to say Charlie probably wins this contest by a country mile, though. So
I was over at Charlie's house when we went to the Grand Canyon, and I'm like, Charlie, let me see your key collection. And he just brought out boxes and boxes, and every single.
He'd take you to a warehouse like Raiders of the Lost Ark, where it's just miles.
Yeah. And then he says,
are
this
like
is not it.
Coded?
Yeah,
they're bar-coded. Does he know which box each one is in?
Oh, he does. And each one is in this like Pelican case, and it's just filled. And I go, "What is this one?" And he goes, "Oh, that's my Bengali, blah blah blah." And I open it up, and sure enough, it's the Bengali. And then like it's just a free for all of keys. And he knows where every single one of them is at. So it's like, Charlie, off to your left hand side is where the key keeper. Yeah, right there. It's just all right there. Right there. So
yep, you can see that red little box right there. That's the one from Japan, the round one.
The CIR 45D.
Yep.
I have one of those. They're beautiful.
Yeah. All right. So we've been yapping for 8 minutes here. So one thing that I want to, before we get into the topic here, is keys for the new CW operator is like an antenna for the new ham radio operator. The best key that you have is the key that you have right now, right? And unless the key is absolute junk, and if you're learning, for example, I have you can't see the paddles now, you can because it's a green screen, but this key right here was my first key that I ever learned on. It's the CW Morse, and I still use it today. It's down here in my streaming shack, and I still use this to make contacts on. And is this the best key I have? No. Is this a good key? Yes. Can I make contacts on it? Of course. I make contacts on it all the time. So I want to make sure that we stress we're probably going to start talking about Bengalis and Vibraplexes and N3ZN keys and these very expensive keys. You don't have to have an expensive key to get on the air, right? You can get what's the straight key that everyone has, the J65?
J38.
J37 or J38.
Yeah, you can get one of those on eBay for cheap, and you can run CW.
The first key I ever had was this printed circuit board CW Morse key. It was like $20, and I made hundreds and hundreds of contacts on this little printed circuit board straight key. So yeah, you don't need anything crazy.
Yeah. But I think what we're gonna do. These magnets came out and they're making me mental. We're gonna talk about, some of the characteristics of what makes a great key, and Evan does a really good job on his channel. Red does too, about the properties of a key, and he actually, these guys actually use these keys and talk about the properties of what makes a good key. And Evan, I want to start where you have a term that I absolutely love, and you're talking about the positive feel of the way a key actually keys.
Yep.
Can you like explain to me and the audience like what you really mean about that term and the things that you are talking about whenever you're reviewing a key?
Sure. So, I mean, when I look at how a key feels, there are a couple of things that come into play. The first thing you got to consider is, are we talking about a manual key or a keyer, right? Because that's going to play a role. Is it going to be a magnet return or spring return? Because again, that's going to play a role. And what kind of material the contacts are. But generally, when I look at a key that I'm looking for a good feel, I want something that's nice and crisp, right? I don't want a lot of mush. I don't want a lot of play. I don't want a lot of give. I want to be able to get the contacts, at least, especially on paddles, super tight. Like I've got a UR5 CDX here. That's my main shack key. I've got that so tight it feels capacitive. There's no play in the paddles at all. I like real precise, real crisp, real tight. Now with a straight key, it's going to be a little bit different. Or obviously, like a bug or something or a cootie, it's obviously going to be different.
Yeah.
When you talk about precision, the difference between, well, we'll take like that CW Morse paddle that you were just holding up, and something like this N0SA key. You can't even compare these two keys. They're other than the fact that they both send CW, sending on these is night and day different. So yeah, that feel, and the feel thing is subjective, right? What I like might not be what somebody else likes. You got to play with keys and see what you think, right? Some people love keys that have a little bit more play, a little bit more give. It's totally subjective, and it's going to be different for everybody. So
One of the issues that I have, and maybe people can help me in the chat and also here in the forum, it's hard to, it's not like buying a car where you can go down to the dealership and you can sit in a car and drive it around the lot or drive it around the city and be like, I really like this car. I think I'm going to buy it. There's not many places where you can go and test out keys, right? I mean, you have your tabletop reviews like, Evan does, and you've got your regular reviews that Charlie does on his channel where he talks about, the characteristics of the key. And you can go to your local Hamfest and maybe they'll have a key that's like, like the same manufacturer. But if you're looking to actually buy a specific key, you really don't have a way to test drive it before you buy it. That's one of the issues that I wish that we had. I don't know how you'd be able to do that, more access to keys, but they almost need like a loaner program. A good example is I play tennis, and in order for me to test out a racket, Tennis Warehouse will send me a racket for $20, and they will send it to me for a week. I will test it out, and then I send it back to them, and they return my $20, or they apply the $20 to a credit, for me to buy a tennis racket. We should do that with keys, right? We should have like some type of program where you can send a key out and make it $50. Put $50 down, send the key out, and you can use that key for a week or 2 weeks or whatnot, and then you send it back, and you can figure out if that key is for you, right? Based on how you send CW.
yeah, and it is tough because you can't just, like you said, you can't just go to some store unless you live someplace near an HORO that might stock some keys and play with them. I mean, I've had local hams here ask me if they can try some of my keys. I'm more than happy to let people try anything I've got. But yeah, you can't just go down to the local, CW Keys R Us and play with keys all day long. So as cool as that might be.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, go ahead, Charlie.
I was going to say maybe one other thing. I always promote joint activations, going out with somebody. And so that might be an opportunity there. If you know somebody who has a certain type of key, go with them and you can use their key. But yeah, it's and I guess you don't know what you don't know. I hate to say that phrase, but my first key I had for a long time and I was happy with it. But now there's no way I would use that key unless it was emergency. It's that MFJ one. But if you learn on it and you become proficient with it, then whatever key you're using should be pretty good. But there is a big difference, as Evan said, big difference in the performances.
Yeah. Another thing that I thought about was you can reach out to your local club too and say, hey, I'm thinking about buying a Vibraplex, or I'm thinking about buying a whatever. Does anybody have one? And they can come and hopefully invite you over and say, here, send CW on this, or, give you some instruction on that key.
The other thing I want to just quickly mention is when you talk about what makes a good key, I talked about the difference between manual keys and paddles. There's also going to be a difference between shack keys and field keys, right? What's good for a field key isn't necessarily going to be good for a shack key and vice versa. So, you kind of have to look at the use case too, right? And that's something that people need to take in mind. And a lot of the field keys, with the exception of a few, there are a few that are exceptional, but a lot of field keys are not going to feel as good as a Bengali or an N3ZN or a UR5 CDX or a March or something like that. It's unfortunately, a lot of the field keys are going to have a lot of slop. They're not quite as nice. Like I said, there are some notable exceptions, but that tends to be the case. So,
yeah, let's talk about that for a minute. Why do we think that is? Do you think it's the machining of the key? Do you think it's what do you think?
Well, I mean, some of it goes down to weight, right? I mean, so like, nothing wrong with this key. Sounds good. But I mean, this is never going to be as precise as this Bengali, no matter how you slice it, right? It just isn't. Yeah. And again, when you're looking at shack keys, weight is going to play a crucial role in it too. If you got a light key, it's going to float all over your desk, which you don't want. The exact opposite is the case in the field. I don't want to carry that Bengali around in the field, right? So there are a lot of things you kind of have to consider before you go buy a key.
Yeah. Red, you do, whenever you review a key, do you have, I just watched you're going to make me buy that American Morse single lever paddle. I know it. I'm going to buy it.
American Morse make really nice keys.
Yeah. And he just reviewed the single lever, and I've been wanting a single lever for a long time, but I couldn't bring myself to buy one in Huntsville. I almost, but I didn't. And then I saw Red's review on it like last week or maybe a couple of days ago, and I'm like, oh, that's the one I want. Yeah. But Red, do you have you've got shack key? Do you do portable keys and shack keys, or you're just portable keys?
I have not. I've thought about doing a series on shack keys, but no. Right now, all the keys that I have reviewed on YouTube are all portable keys. Yeah. And so, you got to kind of niche it down. They're so different. Like Evan's saying, there's you couldn't even compare them really. I can't use the same grading system and the same, evaluation system with the portable keys that I would with the bench keys.
Yeah, yeah.
So there's great discussion in the chat. Well, you're thinking about that.
Yeah, I lost my
great
train of thought.
Discussion in the chat. That's okay. About precision equals weight. Precision doesn't equal weight.
Not at all.
And I'm going to fall onto the precision doesn't equal weight crew. My Bengali Traveler Light, as the name implies, is not heavy, and it's incredibly precise, and it works great in the field, and it works great on my desk. My desk has one of those goofy surfaces that nothing sticks to. I'm pretty sure this wooden tabletop is made of Teflon, which is a different story entirely. I just use double-sided rubber anti-slip pads under my key, so they work really well.
Yeah, I'm in the same camp. It's go ahead, Evan.
I was just gonna say, when you talk about keys sliding around, Quake Hold Museum Putty. You put a little tiny dab of this on each foot. I mean, a tiny dab on each foot of your key, and it will glue it to the table. It will not move at all until you want to remove it.
What is that again?
It's called Quake Hold Museum Putty. You can get it on Amazon for it's like $2. So like if you look at the bottom, so like for instance, this W1SFR Cootie, it's a pretty small key and it likes to bounce around. I'm pretty ham-fisted when I key. I slap my keys around like they owe me money. If you look on the bottom of the feet, you will see a little tiny bit of Quake Hold. If I stick this thing to my desk, now this key doesn't weigh anything. If I stick that down,
oh wow,
I can. But then if I want to move it, it's stuck. Like I can move the desk. If I turn it, just twist it, it pops loose. It's like $2. The stuff is incredible. So if you get keys that float around in your desk, buy this stuff.
Interesting. Maybe I'll put the link in the chat, or actually, if somebody can find the link, I know that if you don't have a blue wrench beside your name, probably can't post. But yeah, put that in the chat.
That's true. I don't have a blue wrench.
Oh, here, say something, Evan. I'll wrench you.
Okay, so I'll grab Let me grab that link real quick. Like I said, it's called Quake Hold. It's on Amazon, and it's like I said, it's like a couple bucks.
So I'll hold up the packaging of my favorite, Jim S. Shaw. And I have already put this link in there. So that's how you spell it on Amazon. I put the link in. But really all this thing is a double-sided silicone mat. And these are designed to sit on the dashboard of a car. And you just throw your cell phone on it and it doesn't go anywhere.
Let me add on. Both of those are really great. And if you're a portable user and you want to use your portable key at home, what I do is I get a jeweler's block, and it has 3M on it, and I just attach 3M on the bottom and attach it like that. And then if you put that stuff to either what Vince or what Evan says to put on the bottom, then you're good. You know, it holds very well, and you'll be able to send pretty easily that way.
There we go. Digital Rancher gave thanks, Rob. Appreciate it.
Oh, there it is. Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah. So, you were talking about precision equals weight. Kyle, you have the same key.
Yes.
This thing weighs nothing.
Right.
I think it's 41 grams. It weighs nothing. And this thing is ultra precise. So precision doesn't have to equal weight. I mean, even like one of these little N6 ARA tiny paddles. This thing looks ridiculous. It's tiny, super precise to send on, and it weighs literally nothing. So yeah, precision doesn't have to equal weight.
Yeah.
And sometimes it does, but it doesn't have to.
Yeah, I think what it comes down to, a lot of times I get comments in my reviews that, why are you holding the paddle? And it would be so much better if you mounted it somewhere. But people don't understand when you're doing portable radio. I hold mine all the time. It's just because it's easier because the radio is usually kind of a little bit further away. I can't sit right at a desk. There's no place to sit it down, and except for maybe your radio where you could attach it to your radio. But it's just a different beast. And so when you're holding a paddle, there's going to be some give as you're holding it. But I think if you really lock in, you can get really good precisions even with just holding it.
That link is for museum wax. That's not what you want. It's called museum putty. Quake Hold museum putty.
All right, hang on.
I'll find it.
If you just search Quake Hold museum putty on Amazon, it'll come up.
Got it.
And you know what I use is a mouse pad. It's similar to what Vince was talking about.
Yep.
I've seen those mouse pads where they're sticky, and you throw it on your dash, and then yeah, Frank, I think Vince is gonna do it. I got a freaking simulator control panel here. We're launching the space shuttle here at AA0Z's house, so I got a ton of stuff going on here. There we go.
You and me both. How many windows have I got open?
Yeah, I've got freaking 4 screens here so I can see everybody. But
Thanks, Rob.
yeah, that mouse pad does well. I've used that on top of like my truck bed and stuck my key on there. But also, Charlie, what I've also done was I 3D printed up a handle because I have carpal tunnel syndrome, and holding a portable key, I get tinglies in the tips of my fingers. So
is that where you got the handle?
Yes. So I designed that handle, and I put some 3M dual lock on it. And every single portable key that I have gets dual lock on the bottom of it. And I put it on top of this key, and then I hold it in my fist, and that's how I key to the side. And so I don't
Brilliant.
I don't grab the key, and it's like it gets to the point where I have to drop the key because my fingers hurt so bad.
Good.
Yep.
Yeah. The 3M lock that's good stuff. Yeah.
It is. Yeah. I'm sure somebody will put that in the chat too. The 3M dual lock.
Well, so before we get back to the what makes a good key question, here we are almost halfway through the stream, and we've started to talk about that. We've touched on it. The one thing that we're all in agreement with is that buying a key is an incredibly tactile experience. So if you can find somebody, that's a fancy word for it, you should touch it first. So if you can find somebody who's got the key and you can borrow it, that's great. Maybe if you go to a field day, you can try one out. That's great. A friend of mine did that in Calgary, and he brought it out to Winter Field Day, and he brought out a Big Alley sculpture and a Big Alley Traveler Light. And I fell in love with both of them. And that's why I own a Traveler Light, because I would never spend that much money sight unseen. That's just not how I roll, right?
Well, I borrowed
Well,
Kyle's.
well, yeah, you guys, like a couple of you ship keys back and forth, like they're going out of style. But the other thing a guy can do or a gal can do is to try before you buy, is get yourself to Hamfest where all of the keys are, or to Hamvention, excuse me, where you'll find what the Big Alley table is, what, 20 feet long with all their keys. The Vibraplex booth, all the keys, all the key manufacturers are there, and a whole pile of people you've never heard of that make keys. I saw a little lightweight CNC machine key that was under a 1/4 inch tall. It's like thinner than the Bama key. It was just beautiful. And I said to the guy, yeah, no, it's half the thickness of that. It's crazy small, right? Anyway, you'll see all the keys at a flea market. At least you can see what's available to you, and you can try them there. I know that when I have a key on my flea market table, I encourage people to try it. And certainly I've been taking my joystick key out to the flea market lately just as a discussion point. And people pick it up and try it. They go, oh yeah, I can see how you would use this. They're quite surprised, right? So
Yeah.
anyway, so what does make a good key? I mean, what do we want? We want something that's easy to adjust, that doesn't slide around much, or we can hold down or pin down in place. We want to be able to set it up so that we like it, because Evan says he smacks a key around like it owes him money. I'm with Charlie in the finger light touch category. I've discovered that my sending is way better when I'm not trying to smack the key off my desk.
Yeah.
Those are the ones I can think of. Charlie, let's start with you. What are some other buying points or design
Well,
points you want to think about?
again, it's going to be different for a desktop versus a portable paddle, because for a portable paddle, size and weight are a big deal. More than, I mean, most of your desktop paddles are heavy, but you don't want heavy when you're going portable usually. So you want small and light, but then in combination with that, and this is where the engineering comes in addition to small and light, you want something that has high agility. And what I mean by that is the movement of the paddles is smooth. It doesn't hit on any of at the bottom or the top of any of the housing, and makes a smooth contact and recoils very quickly. And then at the same time, it's durable, and so it needs to be made of some material that'll last a long time, because there's some paddles out there. Some of the 3D printed paddles may last a long time, but some of them I've already worn out, and so luckily 3D printed material is cheap. So, but if you pay $200 for a paddle, you want to make sure, for a portable paddle, you want to make sure that it's going to last a long time. And so, you got to consider cost. Cost has got to be a good target. And so when it comes to cost, I always look at what are the materials they're using, and what's the craftsmanship involved. And if a person is putting in a lot of craftsmanship, engineering, and good materials, then the cost can be higher and make it still worth it. And then usually those are also more durable. And then another thing is mounting. When it comes to portable only, it's a big deal to be able to mount your paddle either on have several options. The out of production Pico Palm and Mini Palm have the best mounting option, because you can magnet mount it to anything you want, and you can also, it has like a bottom to it, so you can disconnect from that mounted part and you can turn it any way you want. So you can mount it on the bottom, on the top, or on the side, and still have the orientation that you need. And a lot of paddles do have the magnet mounting, but it's just, all you can do is stick it on the top. And if you try to stick it on the bottom, then it's upside down, and then you have to reverse the paddle and all that. So mounting is a big deal for me. And I haven't seen a lot of paddles that have good mounting options. And then the last thing is just it's how it looks. I mean, if it looks cool, that's good. If it doesn't, then I mean, keep looking. I think it's not the end all be all, but I really think that a paddle should look good and be cool as well.
Well, for sure, and I can't remember which one of you or I showed each other the CIR 45. We landed up with it at just about the same time because it's a stunningly good looking key. I'm talking about the CIR-45D. It comes out of Japan, and you should use Google Translate to write the note to the guy who builds it to say I'd like to buy one, please, because he doesn't speak very much English at all, but super nice key.
That's the round one, right?
That's the round one with the little sculpted edges on it. It's really, really pretty, and he has it in a paddle and in a straight key. And he can sell you a kit to convert between the two if that's your thing. Now Charlie's just reminded me I own an 8th key. We were counting the number of keys we had before the live stream started. And I said, oh, I've got 7. No, I've got 8. I've got one of those Palm Pico paddles. And thank you for teaching me. I did not know I can take the paddles out and rotate them 90 degrees inside the case to get them mounting exactly how I wanted. So that's very good. Evan, what about you? Where's your list of must-haves when you're looking at keys?
Well, so again, I'm going to go back to what kind of key are we talking about? Are we talking about a shack key or a field key? And are we talking a manual key or a keyer? So if I go to, we'll start with field keys. My list is very similar to Charlie, right? It's got to be light. It's got to be durable. It's got to be very precise. I'm big on how the key feel. I generally don't mount my keys to anything. The only exception to that is I will occasionally mount TP3 to a jeweler's block, but I generally hold my keys in my hand. So it's got to be comfortable in the hand. I've got to be able to get it adjusted to feel the way I want it to feel. And some of these keys, this key in particular, and I have 2 of them. I love the TP3, but I have a very hard time getting these adjusted so they feel the way I want them to feel. One thing I will tell people with these TP3s is if you find it sends a little mushy, take these goofy vacuum caps off the paddles. All right, those are there just to kind of keep your hands from riding on the cold bare aluminum. If you take those off, it crisps this key up dramatically. But same kind of thing, right? I mean, I want it to be comfortable. I want it to be durable. I want it to be precise. And like Charlie said, I'm willing to pay more money for a key that gives me all of those things, right? I mean, this CW Morse key, I've got both the single and dual paddle version of it. What are they? $30?
Yeah.
Right?
Like that.
What are these? I think they're like 168, right?
Yep.
I think my NZ3Ns, I think these were like 140 plus $15 shipping. I'm willing to pay more money for a key that is built better and feels better, right? Now, when you're talking about a shack key, I've got some kind of non-negotiables as well. It's got to be heavy. I don't want it moving around on my desk. When we're talking paddles, I don't generally send on this. I have 2 single lever paddles. I have a Vibraplex Vibrokeyer, and then that W1 SFR will work as a single lever also. But I generally like my keys dual paddle, heavy. I'm big on how they're adjusted. So like this Begali's just got screws, right? And I actually use this key as this is a field key, not a portable field key, but like if I'm going to go out and operate a picnic table or something for any length of time, this Begali Expedition is the key I take with me. Here in the shack, I prefer my UR5 CDX. And one of the reasons I prefer this key is the adjustments lock. So
Yeah.
I set the adjustments, I lock them down, and this thing never moves. You know, I don't have to worry about making adjustments. Now, if I need to make an adjustment on the fly in a field, that's a pain in the butt. But here in the shack, it stays locked down. I don't worry about it. The other thing I like about that key is I like my key when we're talking about a shack key, I like the paddles real low to the table. Some of these keys, like the Vibraplex keys, for instance, you're up kind of high. I like to be real low between the table and the key. So that's something I personally look for. You know, when you're looking at like things like straight keys, one thing with a straight key that I'm big on. So here's a SpeedX. All right, and it's not mounted to anything. This is just the key. You've got to watch keys where the actual arm hangs over the base of the key, right? Because as you're keying, it's going to want to rock and tip. Even real heavy keys like Begali's, they'll tip if you're keying. So like I don't know if I'll be able to get another desk far enough to see, but I've got an NZ3N key, or I'm sorry, N3ZN key here. This is I think it's a what is it, HK3? Yeah, this is his straight key. And if you look, the knob is centered over the base, right? So this does not tip when you send with this key. So those are things that I look for. Like when I buy a key, how high is the key set off the desk? You know, with a straight key, does that arm hang out over the front? Things like that with, and then it's a whole different ballgame when you get into things like bugs and cooties. That's a whole different ball of wax.
Yeah.
But that's kind of how I look at it. And like I said, I'm big on keys that are real precise, real crisp. Here in the shack, now I said I beat my keys up like they owe me money. That primarily is manual keys. So straight keys, cooties, I slap them around. My paddles, I don't. So I like them real light, like super light on the weight, real tight on the gap. So that there's no effort when I'm sending. I barely move my hand. Like I said, on a manual key, yeah, I beat them up. But with paddles, I want real light, real precise, real tight.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the whole thing about adjustability. It's one of the things that I don't really grade on when I give my reviews on all these portable paddles a grade, and it's come up a time or two though, and it's maybe something I need to add because there are some portable paddles. I have one that I reviewed in particular that you could not adjust the spacing or the throw of it, and it was just it was just not a good one to have.
Yeah,
And,
well, I don't know why you'd want that key. Yeah.
no, and I really like the American Morris paddles, but one of the things that's a problem with them is that their adjustment screws get in the way if you're holding a paddle like I do. If you mount them, they're fine, but they have some good. American Morris does do some really good paddles, and they're very adjustable as well. So that's a good point on the adjustability thing.
Yeah, there's something to be said about some of these keys that Evan and I have experienced, and Red have experienced failures in keys. And key failure is a huge topic of mine that if I'm going to take a key out and I'm going to spend some money on it, it cannot fail, right? I think that we have had the discussion over and over, and this is probably one of, like, any key is great until it fails, right? And then you're at the mercy of the key. And there is a key out there that is made by a company that I'm not going to name because I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus, but Evan and I have done videos on this, and it misses dits and does. And if you are out in the field and that's the only key that you have because you thought it was a reliable key, it has now become a junk drawer key on, I don't take that key. It has now, it doesn't even get attached to the practice keyer. It just lives in a drawer.
Relegated to the bottom of the piece.
Yeah, it's just like, you might as well just melt it for parts.
So after I had that key fail, multiple times, I started carrying multiple keys. I'm big on 2 is 1 is none. Every time I go out, every activation, I have 2 keys, 2 batteries, 2 radios. I have 2 of everything because I've had enough stuff go down on me. 2 antennas. I've had antennas breaking me in the field. But yeah, I always take 2 keys. So like if I'm taking out my KX2, for instance, generally speaking, with my KX2, I usually run like one of the TP3s, which probably is not going to fail because that's an extremely high quality key. But I keep a backup in the bag. It's one of these UC6 UAA capacitive keys that goes on the front of the radio. This thing's hard to send on, but there's no moving parts. It's not going to fail, right? So if perchance I have one of those keys go down, I always have a backup with me no matter what, because even the best key could fail. So that's something to consider, especially if you're doing, like an activation where you need a certain number of contacts to get the activation complete. If you're 3 contacts in a SOTA activation or 9 contacts in a POTA activation and your key fails and you've only got 1 key and you're on a CW only radio and you can't switch to sideband or digital or something, you're kind of sunk. So I always sort of advise people to carry some sort of backup just in case. And like I said, I started doing that after that particular key incident. So
yeah,
it was the one time. It was the trip that we had to Yosemite, not Yosemite, but that area, the California area with the YouTubers group.
Yeah,
were you on that
No,
Where did you
I
go?
didn't go on that one. No.
I was with the N1 CLC on top of a mountain in Yosemite, and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna pack light," and I only brought the one key. That was the one and only time, and of course, it didn't work. I ended up having to only one paddle worked, so I had to send a straight key with the one side of the paddle.
Uh, Ch- Charlie pounded out straight key on a iambic
Yeah.
paddle. That's great. Um, yeah, yeah, I've got the same traits. That the only thing that I have, which is a little bit different than you guys, is I don't do a lot of operating from home. Right? All of my CW operating at home is done by N1MM automatic. Right? There's not a lot of things that I do here in the shack or in the shack. All of my and every single key that I have except for my Traveler is a portable key. And I got spoiled on the N0 SA keys. And that was one of the first keys that I ever had. And of course I learned on the CW Morse, but I am kind of in this boat where I need to expand my horizons, right? And need to maybe get an N3ZN key and some other keys, maybe get the bomb attack and really figure out, is the N0 SA key really the Sysnet? Are there other keys out there that I like? So I think I probably need to go a little bit, do a little exploring, to figure out what my likes and what my dislikes are. We've got a question here.
We do. I'm trying to learn Morse. But I have a few obstacles, mostly due to tinnitus. I feel represented, and copying. I feel represented. But the one thing that really bugs me about keys and paddles is having strong feedback. I have some nerve damage in my right hand, and the one thing that really bugs me about, I have nerve damage in my right hand. There it is. So I want something with a strong touch, but a short throw. So that's interesting. Strong touch and short throw, so I can feel it, but I don't have to move the key a mile. I'll tell
So,
you that my Big Alley light I can set up like that, Evan.
well, I was going to say the first question is what kind of key are we talking? Are you looking for a straight key or are you looking for paddles?
Oh.
Yeah.
So from there, you can, yeah, as long as it's a high quality key, you could set it up super, super tight gap and really heavy on the weight. I will say that keys that are spring return, generally you can get heavier than you can on magnetic return, I've found. So that's something to consider also. Generally, the magnetic return keys, even when you tighten them up, they're a lot lighter than the spring return keys are. So that's something to consider.
Do you guys prefer, do you find that you key better on a magnetic return versus a spring?
Generally speaking, I do, but not it depends on the key, but generally I do.
Yeah, same generally. Magnetic return seems to work better. It's a better throw, but there's a few exceptions. The Mini B is one of them. It's spring return, but it feels nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how that N3ZN straight key is a spring return key, and it's the best straight key I've ever sent on. So yeah.
Yeah, I guess all of the keys that I have are magnetic, and I guess I take that back. This is a spring return, the CW Morse, but I get to the point where I know I know what I like, right? And those N3ZN, or I'm sorry, the N0SA keys, they all have a similar feel and they all have a similar touch, and I've just gotten used to that. And now, like you can almost put something other than an N0SA key in front of me. It's kind of like the Pepsi Coke challenge, and I'm just like, oh yeah, that one's not one, that one is. So do you guys go down that rabbit hole of you know what different keys feel like, and what to look for?
I mean, I've used enough keys now that I kind of know when as soon as I start sending on a key, whether I'm going to like it or not.
Yeah.
It's funny you talk about the N0SA keys. I've got two of them right here, right? You got the one that you have, the SPX, and then I've got this new M3, and they don't feel the same. This key is miles better. I mean, this key is amazing. This key puts it to shame. So if you can get your hands on one of these, this is the best feeling field key I've ever used full stop, end of story. I've never felt any field key this is comparable to my Bagala Shack key. It's that good. So if you can get, they're hard to get, but if you get your hands on one of these, this thing is incredible.
Interesting.
Yeah, you'd have to find somebody who's bought it and wants to resell it because he's not making any more and he's out. So,
Well, good evening, Bill, Ham Radio Tectonics. Welcome aboard. Let me throw this question your way to pass it around. Magnetic or spring? Return. Bill is Bill working on his audio? Okay, well, we'll come back to that. Go ahead, Kyle.
I wanted to add something. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Nope. Go, Charlie. You're up.
Well, you were talking about, the feel and stuff like that. I wanted to mention one other thing that hadn't been mentioned yet, and that is the width between the two paddles is important. And I made a homebrew paddle that was a touch capacitive. No, it was a pressure paddle, and it's about this wide. And then you have the same exact, well, not the same exact, but a similar circuit that is just paper thin. And both of those I have a hard time sending on because one of them's too close together and one of them's too far apart. And so there is that kind of place where the spacing between the two paddles is important, and it makes you send better. And there are paddles, I know a lot of them don't do this, but they're the Bengali and probably the N3Z NZ where you can adjust the width between the paddles, and that is another thing to look for if you really want a good paddle.
That's an excellent point, and I'm glad you brought that up because that's one of the problems I have with both of these keys. So I've got a Bamatech and that N0S and the N0SA, and the Bamatech is too narrow, and the N0SA is a little too wide. And yeah, so that is absolutely a good point, and I'm glad you brought that up. Some of them are adjustable. N3ZN, you can buy. He sells them in all different paddle widths. So when you figure out what width you like, you just order the paddle width that you like from him. But yeah, that's an excellent point.
Yeah, whenever you go to a Hamfest and he is there, N3ZN, I forgot his name. Whenever you go, he shows you, Tony, thank you. He points out the different widths of the paddles and says, now this is a 3/8, now this is a 5/8, now this is a half, right? And he makes it a point to show you that the different keys have different widths. The Bengali boot doesn't do that. They just basically show, have the keys out there, and it's your responsibility to figure out, which keys you like and which ones you don't like. Tony actually gives you some direction. That's what I like about Tony is he'll ask you some questions and say, what do you like? What do you don't like? And then do you like wide spacing? Do you like magnetic return? And he will literally get you down to a key and say, these are the two keys that your thought tree or your process decision tree. Here are the two keys that you want to concentrate on.
And his keys are excellent, I must say.
Hey, Vince, can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
You're fine.
I'm sorry, I got on the stream. I was listening to you guys. I said, oh, I can get on there. And then when I got on, it was the echo, and I couldn't figure out where it was. So I had to shut down every Chrome and I have multiple.
How do you shut down your brain?
Yeah, well,
echo in there.
Well, Bill, we're happy to have you here, man. Is it spring or magnetic return? What do you think?
Spring or magnetic? Magnetic.
All right.
Is that the question you were going to ask me?
That is the question I was going to ask you, but why magnetic instead of spring?
Because the paddle that I seem to do best with has magnetic. And, I came in, I was inspired by you guys were talking about being stuck in the field with a pedal that's not working. And I was at the Lake Norman State Park a couple of weeks ago, and I had two radios with me, and I had a pedal that had never failed me before. And I'm always careful that when I think I'm having problems, I don't blame it on the paddle because the comments will come in. No, that's you, buddy. The paddle's fine. So I'm in humility too. I'm always careful. there are times when a paddle that I know I never have problems with is I'm having issues, and I have a feeling it's RFI. It's not the paddle, it's RFI screwing with the keyer. And anyway, I was at Lake Norman and it failed, and I almost threw it away. I almost threw it away. Lucky I had another radio right there, and I plugged it in, and the radio that I had there had a paddle built in, and it went off fine. But the same guy, same attributes and failings. On one radio, I did fine. On another radio with a paddle, I couldn't get it done. So there's all kinds of things that happen out there.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. We've been at this for 50 minutes. What I like to do is start wrapping up here, but I like to go around, unless you guys have some other questions that you need to ask or want to ask. I'd like to go around the horn and give me your top 2 paddles and why you like them. And we're just going to go around the horn here. And maybe we should do the 30-second countdown here so everyone can think about it. It's just like, I love these training classes I take at work, and they're like, now give me your blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, please don't call on me. Please don't call on me. And then they call on me. I'm just like,
Well,
I have no idea what you're just like, I don't know.
While everybody else is thinking, I'll go.
Go.
American Morse, DCP. That stands for Dirt Cheap Paddle. It's one of the few paddle keys you can build from a kit. It's CNC machined aluminum. Super easy to build, fun little project. And if you want to spend 84 hours sanding it to get the finish just the way you want it, like I did, make your way to your local Audi Body supply shop and buy some 1500, 2000, 2500, and 3000 grit sandpaper. Key number 2, Begali Traveler Light, because it's infinitely adjustable, has a nice super tight feel to it. It's lightweight enough to carry in a pack. That's mine.
Thank you, Vince.
Okay. I'll go.
Go.
Okay, my number 1 paddle at this point is still the Baumatech TP3. I mean, there are so many good things about this paddle, but overall, it just feels so smooth, and I make so few mistakes, and you can just feel it's a solid paddle, very durable, and just the agility on it just makes it great. It's my favorite paddle. For those that you can buy on the high end, good craftsmanship in one of those high end paddles for portable use, inexpensive but almost as good is, believe it or not, the K6 ARK 3D printed paddle. That paddle is a top performer, and it's just it's probably $3 in parts, but it's just a good paddle. And so as far as one that you can just beat the heck and send in as much as you want and just make another one if you don't. And it's just, there's no loss in cost. It's the top performer. Yeah.
Evan?
So I'm going to actually talk about field and shack. So as far as my 2 field keys are concerned, I'm going to agree with Charlie on the Baumatech TP3. It is, like I said, I like these so much. I own 2. It is really hard to argue with this key. If you're looking for a do-everything, bulletproof, built well, great key, you can't go wrong with this. And you know what the other one's going to be. That's going to be that N0SA M3. Yes, it's unobtainium, but it is by far and away the best field key I've ever sent on. As far as shack keys are concerned, I've got 2. So again, that Begali Traveler, when I use this in the shack, it's awesome. Like I said, this does get used in the field a lot, but it's hard to argue with the Begali. For me personally, is when it comes to paddles, though, the UR5 CDX, this CT599 is my favorite paddle, bar none, full stop, end of story. I probably made 4 times as many QSOs on that key as I have on every other key I own. And then on my honorable mention, because we haven't talked about them at all tonight, but my favorite bug is this SpeedX. I've got Vibroplexes and all sorts of other stuff. This SpeedX Model 500 is so nice to send on. I don't have a Begali Intrepid. I would like to get one, but right now, as far as bugs are concerned, that thing is amazing. So those are my picks.
Very good. Before we get to Bill, Kevin's got a question. I have a CW Morse key and used it during my first POTA rove through Iowa, and Minnesota. Great. However, the DIT paddle has failed. I have no idea how to fix it. Suggestions.
Call CW Morse.
Yeah.
They'll replace it.
Yep. They if you so whenever I had a trouble with one of their paddles, I emailed them and they didn't get back to me. I emailed them again and they got to me back to me within like 20 minutes. So if you fail, if you try and fail, try again.
What key is it? If you tell me what key it is, I can probably. I mean, like this style paddle is real simple, right? You just got a couple of contacts and some wires going back to that 3.5mm jack. So if it's something like this, it's probably one of these wires popped loose or something. I mean, there's not much to them, right? So I mean,
Bingo.
depends on what key it is, but
let's talk about a key for just a second. What's a key? It's a straight key is two electrical contacts that make and break.
Single pole, single throw switch.
What's a paddle? A paddle is a third contact that makes or breaks, as the case might be. So check your electrical functionality of it with a continuity tester or an ohm meter on both sides of it, and chase that wire all the way from tip, ring, and sleeve through the three contacts of the key, respectively. Make sure you do not have an electrical issue with it before you call the manufacturer. That's my advice.
Yeah, it's good advice. Bill, your favorite key, your top 2 favorite keys. What do you think?
I can easily tell you what my top favorite one is, and I have limited experience. I've got a bunch of keys that I've experimented. So my best favorite one is the Bengali Adventure. Now, knock on wood, it never fails me. And I have it with me now. I travel with it and I use it in the shack. I have a big piece of metal, steel, I guess, and it sucks onto there with really strong magnets, and I'll use it in the shack. That is my favorite paddle. The second one is years ago, before Adams marketed the 3D printed or put it out there, he gave me one of his 3D printed, which is I think it's slightly different. It's my favorite go-to when I've got the radio that it lives with. But again, I have limited experience. I've got a bunch lying around, some that should probably go in the drawer, like you said, and maybe I'll keep trying them. But that's it for me.
Yeah.
Those two.
So my 2 are a combination of Evan and Vince's. So the first key that I ever got from Larry in Zero SA was the SOTA paddle, which is the early. I think Evan's got one that he just yes, that one. But mine does not have. Evan, hold that up to the camera. Yeah, mine does not have the 3D printed or the plastic paddle.
And it's good that it doesn't, because those are what make the paddle width too wide on this key. If you take those off, and if you take these off, it's the same width as your key, and it's much better. So,
yeah. So I don't have all of my keys from Larry are all metal, except for the one that he has licensed through the CW Morse. So all of the ones that I have are metal keys, all metal keys. So that is my first key. The second key that I love that sits on my desk, and I wish that I took it out doing portable stuff more often, is my Bengali Traveler. I bought that key many, many years ago from Hamvention, and it's probably got the second most number of contacts on it, other than one of the SA or the N0 SA key that I keep in my KX3 case. That one permanently goes and it gets attached to the KX3. So those are my top 2 keys. I wish that Larry made more keys and made them on a
22 hours
on a more frequent basis. But that's the great thing about Larry's keys is sometimes you get them and sometimes you don't, and they become collector's items because it's like he breaks the mold. So. All right, it is 9 o'clock here in the Central Time Zone. last call for questions. And we're going to start wrapping it up here because we try and keep this to an hour. I'd like to thank everyone in the chat. I see a lot of people that were familiar faces. Interstellar Starman. I got Aaron in there. Wild Hogs and Ham. K6ARK was in there. Jody was in there. Bryant. Who else was in there? Frank was in there. Ham Radio Wilderness.
Digital Rancher was in there.
Digital Rancher.
Matt K9EI was in there. Yeah.
Thank you for all of the support, guys. Appreciate it. Yeah. So good stream, guys. Good topic. I love whenever we just talk about keys. It's one of my favorite topics here. So the next CW roundtable is, let's see, let me look at my calendar here. It is, I think it's like the week before Dayton. It is. It's the 13th of May. And I don't have a guest lined up. I'm going to ask Vince. I think he's got a couple of ideas on who we can ask.
Vince has got a couple ideas.
Yes.
So I was gonna say, with the number of people Vince has talked to over the past couple of months, he's probably got a lot of people he can pull from.
Well, Vince has given me direction multiple times on multiple guests, and I've either had people booked. So now I'm getting to the calendar year where I don't have anybody booked, so I need to start reaching out and pinging Vince because he knows a lot of people. My people will talk to your people. So, all right, the 13th of May is the next CW Ops Roundtable. So, any parting words, guys? Thanks for hanging out, Charlie, Evan, Bill, Vince. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having me here, keeping the spirit of CW alive in my soul.
Great book, Vince. Great book.
Okay.
Oh, what is that?
I have to talk about this.
Okay, go.
Chris Rutkowski,
Spending our money again.
NW6V. Here I am spending your money again at Ham Radio Workbench at work. This book's The CW Way of Life. I have not been able to put it down since I picked it up.
Excellent
So
book.
Chris, NW6V, would not be here were it not for Morse code. I will not spoil why, but it's in chapter 1 of the book.
Yes, it is.
Chris was just on QSO today. That episode came out this weekend.
Oh, I have to watch
And he
it.
says and so his interview with me comes up in a couple of weeks because of release schedule on 1CW question. Speak the code out loud to engage your language learning superpower. And by that, he means say it out loud as you're doing it. Da-da-da-da, 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 da-da-da-da,
Code
da-da-da-da.
Yep.
Code talk it. Yeah, he uses that phrase too. So I won't spoil the rest of it. Great interview with Eric on QSO today. He and I spent an hour chatting to record a 90-second video. He's a fascinating guy.
Well, it's funny because
So,
I was teaching one of my LICW classes one day, and I noticed him in there, and I was like, okay, well, so yeah, Chris was just he was in the room. So after class ended, he said, hey, can I talk to you? I said, yeah, sure. So Chris and I talked for like an hour after class, and he's super interesting. He's got all sorts of really good tips on CW. He's a smart guy. Definitely read that book. It is excellent.
Yep, for sure.
Nice.
So
I'm
that's
gonna
my
have to go get
parting
that
comment.
book, yeah.
Yeah, it's on Amazon, of course.
All right. Very good. You want to put the link in the chat there, Vince, if you can
Yeah,
find it?
I'll find that if I
Okay.
can fast enough.
If not, it'll be in the description. I'll grab it and put it in the description. All right. Very good. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it. And we will see you guys in 2 weeks. 73.
73.
Easy, guys.
73, y'all.